Everybody, good evening. We are burning the midnight oil on. This is a special day in our family, September 8th, 2025. So, yeah, let's get started here. Let me make sure everything is working and that everyone can hear me. September 8th, yep. 2020. Okay, so I hope everyone had a great Sunday on this 1,863 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and his life was taken. And this was an operation. This was a huge betrayal of public trust, of public resources, of our military. It was a huge operation that now exposes this cartel network that has infiltrated our country, our country's institutions. And so we're here to really support President Trump because evidence has confirmed that he's right, that he has been right, that he was targeted. Evidence confirms that he was targeted by the intelligence community. Evidence confirms that he was the main target of those that targeted Richard, that took Richard's life, that covered up the murder of our son. So that's why you now read the words of what President Trump wrote to us. We haven't revealed the whole letters because that's intel, right? That is intel. And there is still mutinous people within our government. You see the media absolutely are the scum. They are the scum, real scum, and always trying to pull asymmetric warfare tactics. That word is coming up again. Hypnosis, all kinds of intelligence manipulation to to prevent accountability for what they've done, which is, treasonous, really treasonous. So President Trump, of course, with all the evidence that we have provided over 5 years, constant evidence that is undeniable. Okay, there is no doubt, it's undeniable. Even under the Biden administration that supported this cartel cabal, and with powerful billionaires like Woody Hunt, supported this and still do support this treasonous, traitorous cartel cabal. There's no doubt. The evidence is overwhelming. It's not me saying it. It's not some kind of conspiracy. It is hard evidence that confirms it, and the timeline corroborates it, and what's being done right now corroborates it. And so even under that regime, they had to designate Richard as deceased, and send us a lot of paperwork with that. Then, and of course, that designated us as a Gold Star family, and that came with some power, some legal power, and then with that, we continue to investigate, document the crimes that we found that it's like stones coming up in Ireland. The evidence rose, the truth rose. We just saw them, documented it, and then we filed it. And with all of that evidence, piece by piece, a um, a picture, a the truth is seen clearer and clearer. We look through windows that are foggy, and then as we find the truth, it's like cleaning the window, and you can see clear. You can see clear. And of course, President Trump, then, with all of that evidence, with his administration, declared Richard as killed in the line of duty. With all the other paperwork that we've had, and I know that the media is not reporting this, but all the other evidence that we have, his life was taken on Fort Bliss, okay? His life was taken on Fort Bliss, and they absolutely found his remains. They found his remains, and they have kept his remains from us, okay? And this is what the evidence says. This is not what I'm saying. This is what the evidence has revealed, and the cover up of us finding out that they have our son's remains was brutal. They really went into full gear in January of 2023 to cover up the evidence again. So, of course, in 2020, they were covering it. It rose to the top. And in 2023, they were covering it again. And now it's rising to the top again. And with each time, it's bigger and bigger, right? It becomes mountainous, and they can't cover it up. And so recently on August 6th and then again on 7th, we received not one but two letters, one on August 6th, 2025, and then the very next day we received a second letter from the White House from President Donald John Trump, which is a very interesting name. I love that name so much. I love it, and it speaks volumes. And I, yeah, I'll maybe one day maybe I'll get into that. But from Donald John Trump, we received not one but two letters. And in those letters, it made very, very clear that accountability was here and now, that the death penalty is on the table, and that Richard is being honored, that he is a national hero. President Trump calls our son a beloved son, which is absolutely true. In 5 years, we have showed that he is absolutely our beloved son. He also calls him an honorable soldier, which is absolutely true. His whole record is spotless. It's sparkling clean. Um, he is a national hero, absolutely, because he would not stand by and watch the criminal trafficking, hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked through Fort Bliss. He would not. He would not stand by and watch and pretend that it wasn't happening. And also all the other criminal trafficking and sabotage and mutiny against President Trump that was going on, and information about the orchestration of the Walmart mass shooting. He absolutely reported all of that. And so he is a national hero to be able to have a man of unwavering courage, President Trump says. A man of unwavering courage and unfailing loyalty who made the ultimate sacrifice. And his legacy, this is still quoting President Trump, his legacy is indelible, worthy of the respect and admiration of the entire nation. And so that is The truth, that is what um, the evidence led President Trump to say. The evidence, okay, the evidence that they cannot no longer suppress, they cannot no longer cover up. It's mountainous. It's really mountainous. And um, we have presented day in and day out through loads of different media are the videos, the audios, um, diagrams, pictures, videos, music, any way we can for people to understand our son's case, because it's really, really huge. And the asymmetric warfare um, tactics that were used um, and that were used to try to make us look like we weren't finding evidence, like we didn't have evidence, you know, to really harass us, to make us exhausted, to exhaust our finances, to exhaust our physical being. This is asymmetric warfare to make us look silly, to make us look like we didn't know what we were talking about, and then also to put out false stories like what Bob Moore did. And of course other media, not too many, but other media copied and pasted Bob Moore and tried to present the false story. And now that President Trump has um, uh, used his position as the president of the United States to uh, designate Richard a beloved son, an honorable soldier, a national hero, a man of unwavering courage, selfless purpose, and unfailing loyalty who made the ultimate sacrifice. His legacy is indelible, worthy of the respect and admiration of the entire nation. Um, you don't see the media wanting to report this good news that Richard, a U.S. Army soldier, uh, uh, just rose. He's the cream of the crop. He's number one. He's a distinguished honor graduate and much more. And, this is really, uh, um, you know, uh, why? Why won't they do that? Because think about it. Our military, the Pentagon, which is very, very well funded by us, very well funded, spends uh, millions of dollars uh, trying to recruit, trying to uh, put a beautiful, honorable soldier's picture on a poster so that people will be in awe and join the military and serve, because we are a volunteer military. Thank God. Thank God we're not conscripted. Think about what's going on in the Ukraine, where, 60-year-olds are being pulled out of their house because all the rest are dead or have deserted, gone somewhere else, right? They're pulling 60-year-olds um, to be up against the Russian military and power uh, that are in cahoots with China, right? With China, and so the Ukraine, they're just being silly. They're just being they're just committing suicide by what they're doing, um, pulling these 60-year-old men and older into this war, conscripting them, conscripting. It's not a volunteer. It's been conscripted. We're a volunteer military, which is very, very important because they can't go to war if they have no one to fight for our country. And so that's why, Richard was willing to fight even on the homeland, even on his own military installation, which he was absolutely unsafe. He told us he was unsafe on the military installation. He told us he was unsafe. We know that the barracks were flush with weapons, illegal weapons. We know that they were bringing these young girls in to compromise our soldiers with their parties during the lockdown and filming it, ready to be used for blackmail, ready to be used to degrade their own pride, their own right, their own pride as soldiers. Now they had to live with shame, right? This then these young people were bringing in all of the substances, right, including alcohol, substances and alcohol. And when you have a shame, when you have something you're not proud of, you want to dull it. You want to dull that pain, and then you have a real crisis in the military. And then when you have Maduro, right, of Venezuela, um, shipping in these substances, and sometimes very dirty, so dirty that they cause a death, that they cause a lot of deaths, not just one death, but a lot of deaths. Then you have a real national security problem. You're having the military being killed from the inside, right? In so many different ways, destroying esprit de corps, right? Destroying esprit de corps, and then my dad just drilled that into me before before he passed away. This was, a real national security threat, that there wasn't any esprit de corps. And so that was a big red flag, a really, really big, probably bigger than the big flag that President Trump, those beautiful flagpoles, our stars and stripes that he has now is waving over the White House. But uh, this war, this internal attack on our military, is a really big red flag that President Trump cannot ignore. He has to address it. He absolutely has to address it. Otherwise, we're doomed. We're absolutely doomed. And our son Richard, who's sparkling clean, who is um, his name is indelible, and will never be forgotten. Uh, you know, really exposed all of this by his courage to speak up. And he did pay the ultimate price, because the enemy is just that vicious. They are vicious, they are gross, they are vile, they're vulgar, and you do not deal with them by feeling sorry for them. Okay? You do not deal with these vile, vulgar monsters by feeling sorry for them. Uh, you know, the Bible says you charge the gates of hell, you charge it. You do not cower in fear. You do not let them attack you. You charge those gates of hell. And this is a hellscape, what they've done. Um, Hundreds of thousands of children trafficked through Fort Bliss, and compromising our institutions so much that an 18-year-old, and Richard is a hero, right? An 18-year-old has to stand against those gates of hell, because others are so compromised, others are so um, uh, uh, corrupt, corrupted, or part of the cartel. And we have named the names from General Kelly. Look, General Kelly is the Marine general that was so respected. And he's just so part of this. He's so part of this, and he profited off of this with the um,
unaccompanied minors contracts, right? The unaccompanied minor contracts, and working then for Mauro Campos for a FTO. For an FTO, General Kelly went to go work for an FTO. It is treasonous. He is a total traitor. So we have names, and because of the evidence that we've added to that, that has given us the ability to speak out like this. And in El Paso, the bad guy, Conal Whetten, the Mormon, and this is not a faith thing. This is a network, a Mormon network faction, a should I say Mormon faction network. And the head of it there in El Paso is Woody Hunt. Is Woody Hunt the billionaire that people, you know, he has Texas Tribune and USA Today, and he controls the media through Bob Moore of El Paso Matters and El Paso Community Foundation and Texas Tech University Health Science Center, and through the sports, Kansas City Chiefs, and you go on and on and on. I mean, he's a billionaire. He's not, he can last a long time because his resources are that big. Controlling the housing for most of the military. And when we came on, when all this happened, we were absolutely contacted by several military families that were ill because of the shoddy building materials that were used in the housing, the housing that they were forced, but they were living in. Some of them are forced to live in it. The barracks, you don't have a choice. You have to live in it. Um, and with the economy the way it is, many military, because of the pay, are forced to live in housing. And if he controls the housing, the building of the housing, and he was profiting off of the building of the housing, and he took in shoddy, toxic materials, um, uh, to build this housing for our war fighters. In the Department of War, well, it was Department of Defense, now it's the Department of War, which means a lot. Then, he has to answer for that. He has to, and when you're a billionaire and you can buy, like Veronica Escobar and Beto O'Rourke and many others. Okay, so this is, and when you have someone in the inside, right, like Conal Whetten, that is totally connected now to Woody Hunt through this network. Then you can absolutely see how the Walmart mass shooting victims funds were not properly investigated, and there was no accountability for all that fraud. And we have hard evidence that confirms all the fraud, and more fraud on top of that fraud. And then, of course, the Walmart mass shooting, the Mayella family, the whole situation with Patrick Crucius, that his mental health was never properly evaluated, and that they never did the death penalty. They just, when things became too revealed of this orchestration of the Walmart mass shooting to target President Trump, that the narrative was all a lie, but yet they used it anyway to try to affect the election of 2020. That they tried to pull a asymmetric warfare tactic in hypnotizing people there in El Paso, in that district, against President Trump, and wrongfully so, because evidence shows that it was all a lie. It was all a lie what they did. And Woody Hunt let that go, and so did Conal Whetten. Conal Whetten did not investigate that properly. He didn't have the back of the American people, and he didn't do what his duty, uh, you know, he was no Richard Halliday. Let me tell you, he was no Richard Halliday. He's compromised, and he's a real dud. He's a real dud, and worse than that, he's up to no good. And so then, of course, you have this whole system in the military, the whole judicial system that was being looked at, that was being investigated by people that did want to do their job, like Julio Cordero. Julio Cordero was the Poison Pawns FBI. He's uh, let's just say he would be best buddies with Richard Halliday. I think they're best buddies in heaven with right now, and giving us strength to continue with this Poison Ponds 2.0. I really do, because they're coming closer and closer and closer together. Um, Julio Cordero's spirit and Richard Halliday's spirit are bringing more and more evidence out that we can identify and file, document and file. It's coming closer and closer. It is now intersecting together, those two cases, with the Walmart mass shooting, with the fraud of the victims' funds, and of course, um, uh, those that are behind the taking of life, all of the criminal trafficking, the poison ponds. And so I really want to stress that, because um, that information is forthcoming. And what it has done, it has connected uh, Richard's case with his, and so we're relooking at many of those that were up to no good, and we're reminded of the uh, Casualty Affairs Officer, the CAO, Joshua Lyons, who was assigned, and he was an asymmetric warfare officer, pretty bitter asymmetric warfare officer that went over to TRADOC then. Um, I think he went over the TRADOC. He was in cahoots with TRADOC. Um, and, but his writings very clearly make him, uh, and that his intention when he was assigned to us as a casualty affairs officer, because they already knew that Richard um, had been, his life had been taken. This is in October of 2020. They already had known that. Um, they were very fearful that we would find out who Nadal Bayim was, rightfully so. They were trying to cover that up. They were trying to place Joshua Lyons. In our opinion, this is our opinion from all the evidence that we have, because they brought him in right before the whole Nadal Bayim thing broke, um, uh, because they had absolutely found Richard's remains. So they brought in uh, Joshua Lyons, and then of course Nadal Bayim walked into the Dollar General store and told everybody on CCTV footage. And then of course we got the cashier's less than an hour later, because she had called us right away. We went there, and we got her testimony on video. Less than an hour after he had left, and so of course Joshua Lyons being um, up to no good, being our casualty affairs officer, right? Because by law they had to do that. Um, but not telling us and not giving us our son's remains, um, went into full action to exhaust us, to intimidate us, to harass us. And we caught him doing it. We caught him doing it, and he's up to no good. And now more evidence is coming out, more connections are coming out, and the mountain is growing, the mountain of evidence is growing, and it's really, really a violation, when you're using military operations, military asymmetric warfare tactics against the Gold Star family. And they did, and we caught them, and of course, we of course filed it. And don't forget, and you might not know if you haven't watched this from the very beginning, but when the vile, vulgar harassment went turbo force at the beginning of 2023, and lasted for months, daily lasted for months of vile, vulgar harassment, threats, intimidation, you name it. Um, these were from burner phones. From, well, I wouldn't even say they were burner phones, but they were phones that you couldn't identify easily. And, when you're being harassed and intimidated and threatened for months and months and months, and, all you are is wanting to know what happened to you know, your 20-year-old son, right? Where's my son? What happened to him? 21-year-old son. He had just turned 21 right before. Um, yeah, uh, you're like, something, okay, this is big. This is big, okay? Because this makes no sense. And it's all like sexual, vile, vulgar. You could tell these people are just, they have no, um, they have no real sexuality or healthy sexual life because everything is this vile, vulgar. They just turn it really dirty, like they have something against it or something, right? They have something against it, and they make it so, they're just gross. They're just really gross. They don't have any joy with it at all, you know. And you can tell, no wonder they are connected to the trafficking of children, which we know the worst type of crimes were committed against them, and they commit all these crimes in their own families and everything. It's just so terrible. Um, and that's been all confirmed. That's been all confirmed. That's not me just saying it. I'm not making it up. And I went through 4 months of it, of uh, their toxic waste, um, and we just knew it was exactly that. It was just a bunch of bile coming from their mouth, to intimidate us, to threaten us, to not expose what Richard was exposing. It confirmed to us that what he was whistleblowing about was really, really big, and that we needed to be on this, that we needed to put more effort into this. And we did. And we did. And so we um, found out how. We found out how to trace these telephones, these numbers that were harassing us. And that's how we got it to end, because we traced them and then we turned it in. And those numbers went to, uh, most of them all went to government, went to White House, FBI, NATO, and one went to Santa Clara, California, which is Stanford University, Silicon Valley. So, you know, it's it's like we turned that in. We turned that in. Don't ever forget that, because that is was a very, very powerful moment and ended the harassment that we endured, for months. And it was really, gosh, they're so nasty. You can't help to be affected by it. It's asymmetric warfare, psychological warfare tactics. And they absolutely use it. They use it through their media, they use it through their movies, they use it through their commercials, they use it through, um, uh, you know, uh, even through a mass shooting crime. They were willing to have a bloody mass shooting in order to do a psyop on the people of El Paso County. Don't ever forget that. That was orchestrated, and they're willing to do that. And because the criminal trafficking is so lucrative, and because it's so lucrative, they're willing to traffic anything that's not bolted down. And so that's where they used all their infiltration, their county county clerk stamps, their illegal chief medical exam, very high paid chief medical examiner. Mario Raskin Ortiz gets like over almost a $500,000 a year, right? Almost a $500,000 a year, probably when he gets his little bonuses for testifying, because he added that back then that he would not testify for free. It wasn't enough that he was getting almost a 500,000. He had to add some more expense, that he had to get paid more. And he's illegal. He's illegally in this country, and he's not qualified for that position, period. Period. That is absolutely confirmed. That is like, I mean, we have all the paperwork. Um, and so they used him to even traffic human remains. Okay, the human remains were being trafficked. They were committing a fraud against families. They were giving families that wanted their loved ones cremated. I wouldn't recommend cremation anymore. No, 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 no. Unless you are absolutely seeing it for yourself. I heard in South Korea, one family member at least has to be at the cremation and see for themselves their loved one being cremated. Um, uh, and now I understand why. That always seemed a little strange to me, but now I understand why, because loved ones that were thinking that um, their mother, father, brother, or sister would be cremated were not. They were filled with fluid and the preservative, and the family was fraudulently given uh, grounded dust, like mortar dust from rocks, and even some animal bones. And I saw that the animal guy there in El Paso, I don't know his title, that he's resigning or something, and it just kind of creeped me out a little bit. I'm like, okay, I hope he didn't give the animal dust. Um, but not that I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is how I'm reading things now, the news, because it's so creepy, everything that was happening, that they were giving these families um, uh, this animal dust, right? Um, Animal ash, and then they were taking the bodies, and then they were playing hot potato with them. Or hot potato isn't really good. I guess musical chairs. Let's give the body to that funeral home. They can cash in as an unidentified migrant. Then we'll wait a little bit, send this across the border to this funeral home. They can cash in on an unidentified migrant. Ooh, that might have some kind of toxic, died of some kind of toxic thing. And then you get paid extra money. And then that's what they were doing. And that's why when they went into Plenitude Crematorium, that there were so many, we know over 400 bodies piled up on top of each other, even inside the hearse. The pictures are just atrocious, and rats eating through them and everything. And yet, the furnace was functional, but it had not been running for years, for years. And when they got caught, they fired up the furnace to try to get rid of as much evidence as they could. This is how absolutely hellscape this situation is. Um, and so we believe that part of our son ended up there at Plenitude Crematorium because of all of the individuals involved in this are the same individuals involved in our son's case. Okay, so you have the same people involved in the Plenitude Crematorium, the owner having a house right next to Beto O'Rourke, living in Saus und Braus, my Oma would say, Saus und Braus, while bodies are 400 and more are, rotting away on their property across the border. And he has many houses and many businesses. And, we'll get back into that because his wife even runs a publication. I think it's called the City, where the Chan brothers were like, oh, we have to keep them in, anonymous because they have intelligence connections, and they run FitFam El Paso, and so we have to keep them anonymous because they have they're military, and they had military intelligence access. um Wow. And she didn't want to reveal. Well, that was the wife of the owner, Raphael, from the Plenitude Crematorium. His brother was arrested with another worker. Um, so all of this, the evidence is mounting, mounting, mounting. And I know it's hard to wrap your head around all of the corruption, all of the compromising, because all the fraud with the stamps, the fraud with the autopsies, the fraud, because none of that could happen without uh, Delia Briones, her office, committing fraud at an unprecedented pace and amount. Okay, and this is and of course, Mario Raskin Ortiz. I mean, you get an illegal coming in that's not qualified, that's connected to the cartel, and you're going to get a lot of fraud. Okay, you're going to get a lot of fraud, and he's just laughing to the bank because he gets paid $500,000 a year to commit this kind of fraud. So that's why you see people like the honeypots, um, you know, driving this fleet of cars, right? And willing to, in the middle of a parking lot, have DPS director Jose Sanchez frisky business up her dress. Why she's willing to do that, and and this is in the middle of the day, and he's a very, very public figure because he's the top cop. He's the top cop. And so uh it is very lucrative, um but a big, big chunk of it, I wonder how um Woody Hunt and all his evil, how much was put into West Star Bank, right? Um, how he made his billions, really, um, because he's up to no good. And he's the poison pawns. He's the top tier poison pawns. Um, he really is. And Veronica Escobar has I mean, well, she's really up to no good. Beto O'Rourke, everyone. I haven't had one person. Well, maybe I've had one out of, okay, 99% of all the people that have written me about Veronica Escobar and Beto O'Rourke have nothing good to say about them. Okay, except for they're very, very good at being evil, very, very good about being part of this criminal cabal. Um, and so they've got it. They've already know because Veronica Escobar and Beto O'Rourke have revealed themselves anyway. And then there's others like Jaime Esparza, Bill Hicks, all part of this. James Montoya, the illegal judges on the El Paso Magistrate Criminal Law Magistrate Court. Of course, David Guadarrama, the federal judge. He's as dirty as ever. He's as dirty as any of them. And Justin Underwood, and you know, they're just Bob Moore. And what do they have in common? They have Woody Hunt in common. They have Woody Hunt. Okay, so they're up to no good, um, because what Woody Hunt is up to no good. All right. Woody Hunt could make El Paso great. He could unleash that water. He could build things with beautiful surfaces, healthy surfaces. Um, President Trump just showed that, how that could be with the patio there in the Rose Garden. He said he knows a lot about surfaces. He chose the best surfaces, healthy surfaces, not toxic waste materials that are used in building um, military housing, okay, to make people sick, right? No, he knows about surfaces, and he wants to use the best surfaces, but Woody Hunt doesn't want to do that. Woody Hunt was using toxic surfaces. That's what this whole thing was when I got in, how people were getting really, really sick because of the bad surfaces. And Woody Hunt could do it. He could absolutely um, preserve those beautiful buildings, preserve the the ancientness of El Paso. El Paso's a grid, has tunnels all over it, y'all, because it's an ancient city. So there's so much underfoot, so much underfoot, and a lot of it goes into Juarez, Mexico, and the two Mormon temples are in Mexico, not in Texas, not in New Mexico, but in Mexico. And that gave them access. That gave this network, this Mormon faction network, access to Mexico to cross the border freely, to say, I've got to go to my temple, right? I've got to go to my temple. And I caught on to that pretty early on. I was saying um, that this was really a cross border. You could tell these people had access, and Marlon Soto is the one that alerted me. He said, oh, well, we're essential. We're essential. Um, and so if you're an FBI agent, if you're a Mormon FBI agent, you've got access, baby. You've got access. And that's the point of this. It's not to attack a faith, it's a faction. It's a faction, a network faction, and it bound them together. It bound them together because they were a community. They, they were they had more than just their jobs, right? And so this is really important to understand. Uh, and they give the appearance, they are, because of the asymmetric warfare tactics that they have trained in, and they're very good. They do this very, very well, giving the appearance of goodness when they are the complete opposite. Okay, so they are absolutely professionals in wearing the sheep's clothing when they're wolves. Okay, they're very, very good at that. So this is a deception. They absolutely act in deception. Bob Moore acted in deception with all the media, and the El Paso Community Foundation acts in deception with Texas Tech University Health Science Center acting in deception, the FBI acting in deception, um, and it goes on and on. Um, so, uh, you know, we are a people. We are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So that's the reason why I come on every day, to let everyone know um, that truth. So let's see. I think I got kicked off of this. Let's see if I have any comments now. Thank you, Laura, for coming on. Destroying the U.S. literally. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Anicia, for your prayers and your love. And I mean, just unfailing loyalty. I have them telling me they can buy the president. Um, well, they were trying to with Beto O'Rourke, weren't they? Yeah. You're talking about billions of dollars. And and it, and they've been weaving their way into this. Um, this is, but it's God's perfect timing. I think God is working this all out because if they weren't as powerful, we would still be tolerant. But because we see how dangerous this is, what an egregious breach this is, what is on the line. And of course, we know that they don't hesitate to take life. Um, that we must, must stand up. We must stand up to them. I think our own soul is at risk because we either compromise and cave to them and lose our eternal life, our eternal joy, our eternal peace. So that's my faith. I don't want to risk losing eternal joy, eternal peace. I'm going to stand up to them because um, when you cave and you have that shame, I just Judas is a good example of that, right? He couldn't even live with himself. It is God. Yes, thank you. So we are getting so much information in, and I really, really appreciate it very, very much. And please keep on sending it in. We're not ignoring anyone. It's just that there's only so much time in the day, and we have to absolutely get busy addressing everything that's being sent to us and confirming it and investigating and identifying the crime, documenting the crime, connecting the dots, and the dots are being connected. So, and this group, um, they might think, I'm just want to tell you, uh, they're doomed. They're doomed. At the end of the day, they're doomed. And I think people need to understand that and that you cannot address them with tolerance. They have to be held accountable for what they've done and for the really egregious crimes, as the law says. The death penalty needs to be applied. It needs to be absolutely applied because we've got to stop this hellscape. So thank you so much. We've got to stop the poison ponds because poison ponds, when you look at the definition of it, it's very interesting because uh, they're toxic. Compromise and uh, criminal actions uh, rub off. And, people that are just trying to keep their jobs become a poison pawn. And, eh, so that's where the word poison is. They're poisoning our system, they're poisoning our communities, they're poisoning our institutions, and that even poisons crosses the border. So we need to stand up to it. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I have little souls telling me how scared they are to go to school. Well, I went to school. I went to school there on Fort Bliss. I went to school there in Bassett. I showed you my mother's PTA awards that she got for being third. I think she was third president of the PTA. Um, and so I understand because that was years and years, that was decades ago, right? I mean, I'm a Gigi. I'm a Gigi now. Um, but I understand. And that was a very big reason why I decided to homeschool. And of course, I had to really talk to my husband about that. And I started homeschooling and got a little afraid of it, and put the kids in a little private school that I taught at so that we could pay for the cost of it, the tuition. Um, and then that a little bit of time went by, and I got more courage to homeschool, and then I homeschooled. Richard was homeschooled. Richard was the only one of our children that was totally homeschooled. Um, and what does that mean? That he just stayed at home? No, he went everywhere. He did all kinds of stuff. He went to all Volkshochschule and to Dublin to learn all kinds of things. And he had such a great life. He did all kinds of stuff. I have to show you some of his schoolwork. It was magnificent. He clept out of college math 6 credit hours when he was 15, and 6 credit hours of German when he was 15. Um, yeah, so I homeschooled. I'm very pro homeschooling. Even when all this happened, I was trying to help families because the schools with the lockdown were so bad and parents didn't know what to do. I was working on helping them how to have a job and homeschool at the same time, and have success at doing that, and lessen their fear of it for future opportunities. So, absolutely, I understand the fear of going to school. If it's a bad school, you're there's other options. There's other options. So, and you know, I just want to encourage everyone that there are other options, and you have to take into consideration your family situation. So, thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.